Currently, Douglas Bayosage is a senior legislative aide to the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Obi Omoagege, and he performs collaborative, in-depth research and analysis on legislative proposals for the Deputy Senate President. He is a member of the technical team that drafted, reviewed, and analyzed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2020, and also a member of the technical team Constitutional Amendment Committee. He contested for a seat in the House of Representatives, representing Oriya 1 Federal Constituency in Edo State in 2019. Hopefully, he will try again.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I am very excited to be one of the panelists in today's round table. Elections are very critical in every democracy, and after 21 years of our democracy, it's very important that this conversation continues on a regular basis. It's 24 months, about 24 months to the next general elections, and with engagement like this, I think it will drive more reforms and get more people who have been far away from the electoral process involved in the elections. My main focus today is just an overview of the Electoral Act in the National Assembly, currently in the National Assembly, with the hope that at the end of the legislative process, the Electoral Act will eventually become a law, a law signed by the Mr. President. First of all, the present Electoral Act is a carryover of the Electoral Act that wasn't signed in the 8th National Assembly. We remember towards the tail end of the 8th National Assembly, there were a lot of back and forth between the presidency and the legislature because of some clauses in the Electoral Act. But I would say, as an insider, that document was one of the best pieces of legislation that would have passed through in the 8th National Assembly, if not because of the political fight towards the end of the towards the tail end of the life of that assembly. Now the National Assembly has taken it as a challenge to ensure that the Electoral Act 2020 is passed. And driving this piece of legislation is the Deputy Senate President, who actually is the sponsor of the Electoral Act 2020 in the Senate. He basically wrote 80% of the Electoral Act in the 8th Assembly. And he believes right now, as a presiding officer of the Senate, it's incumbent on him and the institution to ensure that this piece of legislation becomes one of the landmark bills of the 9th Senate and the 9th National Assembly. Some of the major areas of contention in the Electoral Act has always been the voting process and the transmission of results, and also the collation process. Because most times Nigerians always have the challenge when it comes to having belief in the voting process. The voting process has been totally brushed in Section 49 of the Electoral Act. In Section 49 of the Electoral Act, what has been put in place right now can give us a very good in terms of reducing the level of thuggery in the electoral process. It ensures that everybody who goes into who goes to vote, everybody is accredited, and the accreditation is transmitted electronically. What this Electoral Act basically intends to do is to reduce the physical components of our electoral process, because most times our challenge is usually how much physical presence we put into our elections. The Electoral Act amendment is going to be give legal backing to the card reader. We have not had that privilege in the last 2 election cycles. So most times you overvoting takes place, and you see 100% turnout, 100% accreditation, and 100% accreditation, and you cannot, when you go to court, they will tell you lawyers have a way of playing around most of these technicalities. They will tell you the card reader has not been officially signed into law. So politicians most times take advantage of that, and overvoting becomes part of the process, and most times people get really weighed out from that stage. So what section 49 intends to do is going to make full accreditation, biometric accreditation, instant transmission of data and results from the polling units straight to the collation center, that's the central collation center. It will be very difficult for you now to get into a polling unit and inflate results, because only those people who are accredited will eventually vote. Then we talk about electronic voting. The Electoral Act currently in the National Assembly, Section 52, provides a window for INEC to either use electronic voting or any other voting the commission chooses. So if as we progress in our electoral cycle, the window for electronic voting becomes part of the election, I think it will use our the rigging phase. Then we talk about nomination of candidates. What this Electoral Act we do, it will just give only it will provide for just constitutional provision, the constitutional provision for qualification for candidates in the Electoral Act. Political parties will not be able to bring different form of qualifications for candidates. The constitutional provisions to be qualified to vote in the Electoral Act will now be only that which the Constitution provides. And I think what the Constitution provides it's about Constitution talks about the age for voting, your minimum qualification, which is a primary school, secondary school certificate, and also your nationality. So those are the only 3 criteria that we use now going forward. During the public hearing, some persons talked about independent candidacy. Independent candidacy is still a work in progress. It's a constitutional matter. It cannot come through the Electoral Act. And I think the Constitutional Amendment Committee in the National Assembly is working on that. It passed in the last National Assembly, but it didn't scale through from the state assemblies because it didn't get the required 2/3 votes to eventually pass from the states, because after the National Assembly passes it, it goes to the states, then the state assembly votes, then it will come back. The beauty about independent candidacy is that it gives young persons, it will add value to the not too young to run bill, because most persons who were beneficiaries of the not too young to run bill in the last assembly that was eventually signed into law were children of the rich. You can't say not too young to run bill when you have to still pass through the rigors of an election. You you have to pay excessive fees, move from one party leader to another party leader, and before you get a party ticket. So I believe through the constitutional amendment again in this assembly, if the independent candidacy bill scales through, it will give a lot of strength to the not too young to run bill. And what is being proposed for the independent candidacy bill this time around is the fact that you have to seek the consent of a required number of electorate in your constituency. If you are going for the House of Rep, 5,000 persons, you have to seek 5,000 signatures from constituent votes before you can call yourself an independent candidate. I think that will really go a long way in building your confidence as a young electorate, because we can't just throw independent candidacy into the constitution and give room for everybody to abuse it. Because if you say we entrench independent candidacy in the constitution, a lot of persons will just wake up and say they are contesting for the Senate or they want to be governors. So these are some of the inroads the National Assembly is making. Then another highlight of the Electoral Act 2020 is the case of nomination fees. And if this flies, I think it will help a lot of young candidates. I think this was what some of us were really looking for in the last assembly. Because if that Electoral Act had passed as it was then, a lot of young persons would have really benefited, because it pegs funds for nominations at a certain range. The House of Reps, is 1 million, the Senate is 2 million, governorship 5 million, and presidency 10 million. I think for those who really want it and who are really pushing to go into these elective offices, these monies will help. These monies might not too much, although it's still on the high side, but it will still go a long way in bringing people, because during the last elections we saw, especially from the big parties, they had their prices for nomination fees at almost 5, 10, even 20 million to pick ticket for parties. So it didn't really help them. But this time around, if this Electoral Act is passed into law, I believe that it will go a long way in bringing many young and bright persons into political offices. Then lastly, nominations and political parties primaries. This Electoral Act takes care of who handle delegates and statutory delegates. What I think the beauty of it is that it will reduce the influence of, in quote, party leaders. You have to pass through the primaries and get nominated accordingly. That every registered member of a political party will vote for the adult delegates who will eventually vote for the candidate. So I believe that some of the innovations in the Electoral Act 2020 will go a long way in improving our electoral process. But beyond just improving our electoral process, I believe there still needs to be a lot of awareness and sensitization, because most people at the grassroots and even the intellectuals who shy away from politics need to really understand some of these new innovations, because if they don't get to be aware, most of them will still stay back and leave the process for the old and entrenched interest to continue dictating the electoral process. Thank you very much.
Osigwe as a senior advocate for the Nigeria. Thank you so very much. It's a great opportunity to be here this afternoon to discuss the Electoral Act Amendment 2020.
when I call it October, when we suggested it would be a good idea to make me one of the speakers today, I confessed to him that I have scant knowledge of the proposed amendment. But I would like to believe what my good friend here, Mr. Fido, I guess I got it right, Douglas, has said about the Electoral Act 2020. But I will only add a rider, but I don't share his optimism. I don't. And I'm not a pessimist. Now, the much I know about the Electoral Act are some of the things I've read in the newspapers. And I will also start by saying that our problem in Nigeria has never been the absence of good laws. Our problem in Nigeria is in us, the individuals, the politicians, the security agencies, those in government, those who stand to benefit from a dysfunctional system. And I'm glad the young lady who started the talk, sorry, I've forgotten your name. I don't usually forget ladies' names, but it happens. She made reference to the recently concluded election in the United States. Just imagine for a moment that Trump was a Buhari or a Jonathan, and the Secretary of State of Georgia was Secretary of State of Anambra or Zamfara. Do you think he would have been able to say no to the president? First of all, he will fall over himself that the president called him and suggested that the vote count be changed to make him win that state. I cite this example to show or to buttress my earlier assertion that our problem is not the absence of laws, but our unwillingness or blatant refusal to abide by the provisions of our laws. And that is why in Nigeria, we shamelessly say, when we win the election, say, we thank the president for not interfering in an election. And we see nothing wrong in that. Inherent in that statement is an admission that the outcome of the election is influenced by how the executive directs the security agencies to act or not to act in an electoral process. And we are so shameless that we think nothing about that. Whether the law is amended to allow independent candidates to allow 2 years to contest, the hogwash will continue. Imagine all of you in a room where 21 years old and allowed to run for government. The outcome may not likely be determined by what the voters feel, but by how those who manage the electoral process act. I have monitored the election. Indeed, I was chairman of the NBA committee for the last general election. I led the NBA team to Kogi State. It's only in Nigeria that you see all observer groups say there was low voter turnout. And in many constituencies, there were returns of 80-something percent, 90-something percent. Kogi is there as an example. Very recently. Everybody agrees that voters did not come out. But the results will suggest otherwise. And then you are asked, go to the tribunal. And then sometimes the court says, how can you challenge state-wise election? And you call only a few persons. Even the courts make it impossible for you to successfully challenge an election. The burden is not placed on INEC to first of all show that they conducted the election in substantial compliance with the electoral process. And then Imo State is there as a crying shame to all of us. You win an election. The Supreme Court upholds that you won an election rather. And the votes attributed to you is much more than the accredited number of voters in that state. And the judgment does not address that. And then INEC disclaims the results to rely on. And the policeman tenders it. And in some other judgments, the court says, no, he cannot speak about this result because he's not the maker. But in Imo State, such results are accepted. Until we don't accept the truth, we have these conferences in nice rooms, well-air conditioned, we go home. Sir, I ask you, why should a senatorial candidate not have 5,000 constituents supporting, but ask me to get 5,000 because I see an independent candidate. Who tells you that because he has got a party ticket, he's not abusing that opportunity? Who says? If we tend to have number of constituent support candidates, it should be above board, whether independent or sponsored by political party or by the civil themselves. Because you also start another bazaar. People will be taking money from him to sign that signature. And somebody will go to court to say that some of these signatures are fraudulent, they are not existent persons. And I was somewhat worried when you suggested, respectfully, that an individual grows almost 80% by the electoral process. I do not think it's something to boast about. It shows the absence of democracy when an individual is deemed to have written a proposal and be elected. Because it will end up being tailored to suit his personal interest. It doesn't happen anyway. Our law-making process is a sham. I woke up one day to hear that the Police Act 2020 has been passed into law. No argument, no debate, no knowledge of it. And then I picked it up to read, and I saw that it was a terrible piece of legislation, illegal drafting, repetitive of provisions of another law, the Additional Criminal Justice Act, very confusing and vague provisions. A law that ought to have improved on the Police Act of 1948 ends up making a model of the whole thing. That's how we make law. In 2011 or 12, I was part of the MPA team that went to the National Assembly for the public hearing on the proposed amendment to the Court of Appeal Act. And the MPA's position was that there was no need to increase the number of justices on the Court of Appeal because the Court of Appeal was much more productive with fewer justices. They had more and their productivity had declined, and that the quality of judgment was not encouraging, and that the conflicts in the judgments for the various judicial divisions were an embarrassment. And in that hearing, the Attorney General Advocate said that having listened to the MPA, that there will be need to adjourn the meeting to allow for wider consultation. But guess what? There never was. The next thing we heard was that that bill has been passed into law and signed by the President. That's our lawmaking process. Am I excited? I am not. You can amend this electoral act 1,000 times and the ship will continue to hit the same. Forgive my choice of language, but for want of a better way of expressing how I feel about it. Even if you do anything, and the governor in the state is giving the police commissioner is working for him, or he requests a particular police commissioner to be sent to his state, what will happen? In Kano State, we saw is, I monitored that election on behalf of MPA. Somebody was winning an election, the state commissioner of police was alleged from the post that have refused to allow certain things. They brought in a certain DIG, who I heard was in Edo the last time. And we saw all the violence and saw illegal video work. That's Nigeria for you. Welcome to reality. The security agencies continue to play a role. And until we do away with them, if the electoral process was not manipulable, there will be no need for security agencies. In many countries, people simply vote and go away. You don't see any policeman. What is ballot snatching? People go and cause a fight in a place that are not popular and then they cancel the results. And another part of it is that we don't hold people responsible for their actions. Might is right. Do it and succeed. It doesn't matter. Nothing happens afterwards. And our legislators, they cry shame too. They are more interested in the perks of office. They are more interested in winning an election and preparing for the next one. So, in the name of oversight functions, they are mass wealth. The laws are not made for the advancement of society. I will tell you, if it is Nigeria that has the VP supervised over counting of votes, electoral college votes, Trump would have been sworn in on January 20. Soldiers will be there, they will flog everybody, and then the civil will certify it and reject the votes. And the Supreme Court will have found it. Laws don't work here. And you cannot, for those of us who are in practice who are lawyers, sometimes you find it difficult advising a client. I had a talk with Paul Eroko, it was caused by him in 1978, and he says, And it's difficult to advance a claim that a particular position of the law is the correct position. Because when you cite authority, another lawyer cites another authority on the same issue by the same court. And we are losing money because people don't trust our judicial system. All arbitrations are going to London, to ICC in Paris, even Ghana, even Rwanda. And we don't worry about it because we have an immediate gratification mentality. What happens now is what is important. What I'm getting, the system can go to hell. And so, like Louis XIV, many of our leaders say, I promote the Lord, after me the storm. But the storm is already with you. It won't come after you. And our children will not be better for it. So if I keep talking about the Electoral Act, I see that is a cure-all. I see that is a silver bullet. We miss the point. The system is rotten, it's systemic. And the gentleman who said that you cannot suggested that you can't change the government except after another 4 years. I don't agree with you. You see, changing a government comes in different ways. Change in the sense of removing it and replacing it with another. And change in bending a government to the will of the people. You don't need to wait for the next election. Because adopting that culture would mean adopting a culture of hopelessness and helplessness. It means if we are stuck with you, we wait you out for 4 years. Hell no. The people can make a government to do what is right. The government proposes a tax, the people oppose it, and the government says, okay, we bow. We do it the other way. But if you suggest that we can only wait to vote, and that's me that I pretended that our votes count. They don't really count. If you ask me, I monitor the election, and I'll tell you that the votes mean nothing. The votes go in before daybreak, what comes out is not went in. It's not like the computer where you have people garbage in, garbage out. We put garbage in and get wood out. When I said I don't share my friends' optimism, not that I've seen so much, but I've seen a little. And when I agreed to speak, I agreed not to speak because I was somebody important or knowledgeable in this matter, because I thought I had an opinion on it. And that's what I've come here. So if I have not cited any section, if I have not talked like a lawyer, you forgive me. I'm talking like a concerned citizen. Because whether I agree to play politics like my good brother here has decided to play in the Edo State and in the National Assembly, I'm affected by the outcome. I'm a consumer of what they give us. So if they get it right, oh fine. If they don't get it right, oh fine. But I'll say it before I go to sit down. And I'm not trying to change the topic for this discussion. You have to forgive me. Until we pay attention to the things that count, we're not going anywhere. I don't know how many of you, I grew up in the 70s. That's when I was born. My mother had 9 children. And my father was able to put us through because the public school system worked. No big man sends his child to public school now. And part of our failure and corruption is traceable to the failure of education in Nigeria. And I also attended a public university. And don't ask me if I want to send my children there. When you believe you have to steal so much to send your children to even boarding schools abroad, to very expensive private schools in Nigeria, and when you think there's no need to fund the universities, that your children are not going after you, it doesn't concern you, and also can go and strive for a whole year like they have done now, and your children's education is going on uninterrupted in the foreign land, and you need to steal money to maintain that your life, do not forget that the rich man is awake because the poor man cannot sleep. As long as the poor man cannot sleep, your life is in danger. That's why even when you're going to your village, you need a whole lot of comfort. And that is why when you're stealing this money, you're paying foreign companies arranging for air ambulance to evacuate you because you refuse to fix that hospital. Or you forget that you will lose your life on the way to the airport to be lifted by that air ambulance. You fix that road you refuse to fix, may it cause an accident that takes your life. We start with education. We put social infrastructure that ensure that you don't need to steal so much. So, okay, did I talk something? So, and that's my quarrel as a lawyer when we keep amending the laws to put in the constitution that electoral matters must be concluded within 60 days. And then the criminal matters are on the fast track. And then civil matters in our courts can take up to 12 years to come to hearing in the Supreme Court. I ask them, what foreign direct investment do you seek? Who will come and invest there when they are not sure that their litigation will be treated? Foreigners are not coming because of the electoral process. They are not coming about your prison system or criminal justice system. They want to do business. And they want to be sure that the courts are there to be able to dispense with matters. And so when we keep emphasizing power politics in a country that has a lot of political decay, the boss will leave us behind. Before I sit down finally, I would like to remind us that about over 21 years ago, over 20 years ago, Rwanda went through a genocide. And today, despite their not so stellar democratic credential, because Paul Kagame is a sort of dictator. But you know what? It's done quite a few things to uplift the country, focusing on building institutions. In Nigeria, we have so many strong men, build individuals. And so everyone saying, thanks to Buhari, thanks to Jonathan, thanks to Governor Vinci, thanks to. We thank individuals as if they are doing us a favor. Then you build a road, you have to have a fanfare to commission it. As if big deal. When people are investing in human beings, we are celebrating 2-kilometer road built at 10 times the cost with a lifespan of less than 2 years. Thank you so very much. I was speaking to you about all of them.
I'm trying to say thank you, sir, but I'm still trying to digest what you just said, and I don't know, I can't find the right response.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to start by thanking the speakers that speak before. As if we planned it, we actually done right. I don't know whether barrister, did I call you? And well, I want to speak on so many things, but there's no time, but I will just speak on my experience alone. The system is there. Now you imagine somebody like me contesting for governor in Edo State. I can hear many speakers saying United States, but we forget to say the one of Uganda, the one of Edo State. At least there are many youths that contest and want to change the system. I will give you brief experience, and I believe this experience will take you home with a different mindset and start seeing yourself as somebody that can make a change in what you do in Nigeria and everything. Because in this country we know how to talk, but we don't know how to act. Not until you are pushed to the wall and you start facing your fears, you will not get there. Not until you start doing what people believe you cannot do, you won't get better. And that's why I'm here today. Not because I want to be celebrated, but because I want to impart something, or because I want to say something that will make you go home and start doing things that you feel you cannot do. And I bet you will come out with a positive result. Today, once again, my name is Comrade Boyloki Emmanuel. I was the ADP governorship candidate in the just completed election in Edo State. And by God's grace, I came out third in the election. Listen. Do you know, if you ask me today, the reason I said I came out third, of the election was because that's what I prayed God to do. Because I know the system. I took advantage of something, and by God's grace, I still believe I will be the governor of the state. If you follow the matter very well, you will know that what I'm saying is true. I don't know, but let's see how it goes, because God is the giver of power. Actually, I contested to win the election, not to withdraw. Am I saying something? Yes. I was at home one day. I decided to analyze the contestants, the big contestant of the two parties, the APC and the PDP. I check their weakness and I check their stronghold. And I check the Nigerian factor. And I tried to base my own on something. And I tried to contest. When I was contesting the election, you know how it is. You have to be this political leader, you have to be this political leader, you have to be that political leader, and you are spending money. Everybody wants to collect from me. Nobody wants to give to me. Even my friends. Now, my friends was able to go and give Obaseki 5 million naira to contest the election. Meaning that it was always, 100 naira is not give me. Let me use that language. But I have some dogged comrades who said we can do this. We're doing online campaign. Me, myself, and my comrades go to market, we're sharing flyers. If the flyer finish, we'll go to copy black and white. Thank you. These people, the people were seeing our sincere purpose. But they were not just seeing us small, but they were seeing our sincere purpose. We would tie our speaker on our vehicle, we play the music anywhere. We stop, we just say everything, we go. We're just doing it little by little. I was called upon by one of these two parties, and they gave us money. Come and join us. I think we're hearing you. Do you know what we said? We said, please allow us to go to the field and make our name. We'll come back. But do you know that we did not go back? The reason we did not go back was because we were not there for the money. We were there because we want to win. Like I said, the prayer I prayed to God right before was to come out third. And if I come out third in that election, I will win the election. How God is going to do it, I just believe, I just ask faith, and I believe it will come to pass. If you believe, say amen. But anyway, I want to say this. Yes, I like the way we are laughing. Just imagine, when I want to contest, I went to meet some men and said, I want to contest for governor. I said, governor of where? I said, and they sat on the floor. I saw this big man was just laughing, I was rubbing his stomach. Governor. You know what I mean? They were just laughing and laughing and laughing. In fact, until Allen published my name, that was when they believed that it's true. How did you do it? So, if we decide to carry our vision, the Nigeria of today, see, those people, those policies they are making, those electoral amendments they are doing it to benefit themselves. I'm telling you, they will not do it. I like the way the barrister spoke. See, let's take this country, let's stand up and begin to do things. If you do not stand up and say you're right, in fact, they will not listen to you. The Nigerian factor is dead. We need to wait. Our generation needs to take over from those people, and the way we can take over is by getting involved, pursuing our dream, and make sure that the Nigeria we seek for, we achieve it. Amen. So I believe with these few words, 2023 is not just far. 2023 is not what? It's not far. I want to go to your states. If you are old enough to contest for president, contest. If you are old enough to contest for governorship, contest. If you are old enough to contest for House of Rep, and make sure you are not bought. Make sure you are what? Go with sincerity of purpose, and God will see you through. Thank
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to read the letter seal, specially. Good afternoon, sir. I came here while Mr. Douglas was making his presentation, so I can't really say much about all that he said. However, I heard everything the letter seal said, so I'll comment briefly on that. For those who know Mr. Afam Osigwe, SAN, He's not one of those people who will make you feel comfortable when you're seated at the bottom of an active volcanic mountain. He will tell you the truth the way it is. It is left for you to deal with it the way you deem fit. And he hasn't done anything different today. He outlined the issues, the basic among them, which is systemic rot. The Electoral Act, appreciated, noble intention, made well crafted and all that. But given the way our system is structured, at the end of the day, it will be like driving a Cadillac on a terrible road. You will wreck that car. So all that he has itemized, there are a whole lot more added to that. There's the issue of insecurity, there's the issue of hunger, there's the issue of political apathy, not to talk of how opaque some of our laws are. People don't really understand how these laws are applied. The Electoral Act, people cannot relate with it. All this, I believe, and thanks to the Policy Roundtable for putting this together, I believe the whole essence is to make clear what is unclear. We appreciate this gesture. So I will wish to propose that in the subsequent programs, efforts should be geared towards addressing some of these damaging factors that the learned seal has identified. I believe this will go a long way in bringing sanity to our political system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Walked in at the point where the learned seal was almost rounded up. So our topic particularly is reference to the 2020 general election, 23 general election and the amendment bill of 2020, Electoral Act 2020, getting young aspirants involved. Now, I don't know if you heard or paid attention to what Mazi was saying, but I'll keep calling you, so I'll keep calling your name. I had hope you took it away. So I'll keep it's just because I tried to read the bill and I was like, okay, maybe this will work, but now I don't know. So what's your opinion? We'd like to hear it. If you want to sit there or come over here, what's your opinion? The bill, you're not too young to run, election coming up, Electoral Act amendment. What do you think our 2023 election is going to look like? Round of applause and support.
Thank you. I was actually also asked to make a little comment about comparing the Nigerian election with the US election, e-voting, and the people in the diaspora. So, I'm one of those who call it interdisciplinary professors. My first degree is in computer science. I was a programmer for years, and then I have a doctorate in law. So what I do now is a combination of computer science and law, which is cyber forensics, which actually applies to elections. It's easy for us to tell if an election was fraudulent or real. So, because I have 3 minutes, in the case of the US presidential elections, when you hear the so-called, we call it the stupid orange man on TV complaining that the election was rigged, it's easy to disprove that he was lying, right? And you can do the same thing here in Nigeria. It's very easy. If I open my phone to use my phone, it sees my face. I can do a bypass with biometrics. Those are easy to implement if you have the willpower or the government has the willpower. But once you implement those things with the checks and balances, it's more difficult to read the election. That's the reason why they don't want to implement these technological changes. I'm also the public relations officer for the Nigerians in the diaspora America. Right? So the people in the diaspora, they want to be able to vote in the Nigerian election. I just came back from Abu Dhabi. I was there on contract with 2 Americans, a Canadian and Portuguese, and the Americans were able to vote electronically. You can actually request your ballot, they send you your email, you vote, you mail in, and you can track your vote. So e-voting is also very easy to accomplish. In Nigeria, all this stuff about NIM, I know I was discussing with somebody this morning and they said people from Niger or other countries are getting NIM. But again, all those things are easy to police if you have the willpower, meaning the leaders are willing to do that. But you know, just like having a cashless economy, it doesn't benefit those who want to have fraud. So if I have less security, less stuff, then you cannot cheat me. You can have more fraud. So just know. So to address the young people voting, I also believe that the future belongs to the young people. Those of us that are already over half a century old, we know that we've tried a little. I was disillusioned. I tried to run for House of Reps. And I can tell you stories how I was somewhere waiting for the primary and they've already joined the election. And I was there preaching policy. The guy was delivering $100 bills to people to vote for him, right? But again, do not lose hope. You're never too young to really vote. And I always say, all those 70 octogenarians and septuagenarians, politicians, they cannot rig the election really without you young guys. Yeah? You don't see this old 80-year-old man coming to carry ballot box or to fight or carry cutlass or carry gun. So you are the one that's enabling them. And really, if you sell your vote for 5,000 naira, really you're selling your destiny. I always say, if they give you money, take it, chop the money and vote your conscience if you want to do that. I would really say more for integrity, don't collect the money, but you say, people use a little preaching, they say, condition is small and you know, and you have other issue, but I'm saying, please vote your conscience. So, you young people, you could really affect Nigerian change. American current election and the Obama election was won by young people getting involved. The only reason why Donald Trump was elected was because the young people did not get involved. They were saying it's not Bernie Sanders, blah, 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 it's not Obama. But you could really decide the future of Nigeria if you become more active. So I'm in favor of the electoral act. I have some people, friends who are in government, but you could. Nigeria is so positive. I know that we have a lot of problems, but there's so much positive potential in this country. And those of us that have been around the world, we can see what we have in this country. You just need to take hold of it and really be willing to make the sacrifice. When I came here, I was a professor for 6 years at one university, and I know they showed me better. I had to really let it go. And I said, okay, let me go back to the group. But in just 1 year, you can make a change. By running for office and not being bought out, you made a difference. Somebody can believe that you can do that. I know at my university that the young girls saw that we had a professor that would teach the class and not ask to sleep with the girls. The young guys see we have a professor that would teach the class and not ask for money, right, for the young guys. So you could do your own little change. And before you know it, people are being encouraged. And we will have a better country. Amen?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Please, you have 30 seconds to introduce yourself and ask your question. 30 seconds to introduce yourself and ask your question.
With regards to I'm just putting this question out there generally. Do we think that the problem is that we need to get more youth involved? I mean, currently more youths are involved, a lot more youths are involved at all levels. I worked in the Atiku campaign team, and we had more youths on that campaign team than anywhere else. Same thing happened with the Buhari team. The BMC had a lot of young people on it. So is it just that we have young people that are not willing to participate, or that we don't still yet understand what it means to participate in elections? That's one. And the second question is, there's something called the legitimacy of power. Are we missing something with regards to the legitimacy of power? Because the essence is that you're voted by the people, not by God, but you're voted anyway, and we just have bad people who have been legitimately voted in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
A political career is a path that you pick for yourself at a very I won't say young age, but you have to know why you're going into leadership. And most times, we are very quick to say, oh, this man has been in politics for 20 years, he has been in politics for 30 years. If you check most of those persons, they started their political careers at a very young age. Most times, it's easy to say, oh, this man, he will stay here, he won't stay here. If you actually believe that you want to be a change agent, the best thing to do is to get involved. And getting involved means rallying like minds together. The only way you can do that is joining a political party. Most times, we always come with that mindset that, oh, this party is this party is that. A lot of young people don't even understand the party process and how democratic it works. You want to change a system and you start from Abuja. Maybe you just stay in your room in Abuja, or you really don't understand where your political building block starts. Even if you don't go to your village, but you have to start from communities. You have to identify with the people. Let them know your programs and your agendas. As expensive as Nigerian elections are, I can still tell you that in the National Assembly, there are still like 15-20% of persons who came in on the back of their popularity, not because they spent a lot of money. Most times people don't want to do the work. Politics is work. It's not, you have to put your face in the front of the electorate. If you look at Georgia, for instance, everybody talked about what Georgia, the voting result in Georgia did. Stacey Adams contested for the governorship of Georgia 2 years ago, and she lost with 50,000 votes. She took it upon herself to rally young people, and in a space of 2 years, she was able to increase the voting population with 800,000. She's a politician, she's a career politician. She was in the House of Rep from 2011 to 2000 for I think 7 years in the House of Rep, Georgian Parliament. But she knew she would be a governor of Georgia one day. But she had to do the work. And doing the work means forming a group of like minds, allowing people register, because most people don't even have a voter's card. Most people that she felt really will be part of the change in Georgia, they didn't have a voter's card. So in a space of 2 years, 800,000 people in Georgia got voter's card through her advocacy. And Georgia was able to, for the first time in 15 years, the last time they had a senator from the Republican, from the Democrat Party was in 2005. They were able to produce 2 senators, and the votes from Georgia played a huge role in making being president. So politics is work. Young people must do the work if they actually want to be in change agents. Thank you very much.
Now, I want to start by saying, is the US election a good example for Nigeria? Especially in the context of wanting Nigerian young persons to get involved in politics. Is the election of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, was that a good example? Is that a good example for us to look at? I want us to look at it in the context of age, in the context of persons who were already established in other things they were doing. Again, I know Joe Biden started politics at the age of 27 when he was a councillor, became a senator at 29, and he has been there, went up to being vice president, and now he's president. So I want us to know whether that was a very good example. Now, in 2023, the youths, are they really the solution to Nigerian problems? I want to, that is my question, but the background to that stems from my involvement in the 2019 election. Just like he has been mentioning, we should get down to the grassroots. I decided to go down to my village. I joined a political party, Alliance for New Nigeria. Yeah, I decided to join a new party. And I contested and won the position of legal advisor for my local government. I deliberately decided to start from my local government. The day of the primaries, how the man who was the flag bearer for ANL, for presidency, and how he became the flag bearer for the party is still a mystery to those of us who participated in that primaries. And we are all young people under 40. So do we really think that the youths are the solutions to Nigerian problems? Outside being youth, so many youths who contested, who came from other parties, people, young persons, we are paid by the governor. Young persons, we are paid by other party members to come and take and get the party tickets for our party and then relax on that. Now what happened? These people had money, we didn't have money, we had mouth. The bad, people were hailing me. They said, don't worry, your candidate will win, everything. Immediately after that, you see young persons, when I mean young people, people under 35, we are instruments of destruction. Now, please, 2 questions I've asked. Is the US a good example for us to copy? Is it what we want in Nigeria? And the second one is, do we really think that the youths are the solution come 2023?
Thank you very much, sir.
So with respect to what Mr. Douglas said, I have a few questions to ask. He cited an instance where for independent candidates you will need at least 5,000 signatories. And I wondered within myself, how many constituents can boast of 5,000 real persons in real time to do the signings? He also made mention of, because I'm focused on him since he was able to give a breakdown of the bill itself. He made mention of the cost for nomination forms. If our minimum wage is pegged at 30,000 naira, for instance, some states have not complied, if not all states, how do you expect a young candidate to come up with 1 million, 2 million to contest for these offices? And secondly, it is people who elect persons into offices and not God. So the pattern for politicians to always say, by God's grace, or God will give them the results. It also tells you how they consider the people who actually do the voting. Our votes as relevant as what God can do for them. We really matter in the entire scheme of things.
Thank you very much. The next person, Emmanuel.
To the politician that contested for a good governorship election, how do you activate the willpower for Nigerian youth, African youth? Because we know that once Nigeria gets it right, Africa gets it right. So how do you activate the willpower? How do you prevent the shunning our apathy towards politics? And actually, how do you get involved and prevent we from selling our votes? Because vote buying is very, very essential too. Thank you very much.
So my question is to how our internal political system can have a structure where they can allow, where they can have policy, an ideology that young people can tap into. Because I think there's no structured agenda, just joining and be a particular member.
Which way out? We are young person, majority of us here are below 40. What is the way out? What does future have for us in this country? Since agencies like the National Electoral Agency has refused to do their work, what is the way out for us? He has outlined so many laws in the system, from judiciary, from lawmaking out of government, from the executive, from everywhere. In fact, when he was speaking, I felt that there is no hope again. Yes, that's the truth. I was having a simmer of hope when Mazi was speaking. I was seeing light at the end of tunnel. But when Mazi Afam Osigwe spoke, the end of tunnel disappeared. I couldn't even see the end of tunnel again. Yes, we are in trouble in this country. But I think as much as we are raising consciousness to the problem on ground, we can't even, if we start enumerating them, we're not going to be here today. I think we should also think of the solution, the way out. What are we going to be doing as individuals in our own respective workplaces, homes, streets, among our peers and our friends? What are we going to do to change narratives? Because if you continue to lament from now till tomorrow, it's not going to bring any change. Jonathan, some days ago, we were talking about restructuring Nigeria. Jonathan said that we should first of all restructure our mindsets instead of restructuring the Nigeria. What are we going to do to come out of this mess? We're in a mess, whether you like it or not. Economically, security-wise, every aspect of our nationality is plunging into an oblivion. I think in as much as we are a relative problem, I will also beg our senior colleague here, Mazi Afam Osigwe, to suggest some ways he think we can come out of this mess. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have just 3 more slots.
You asked a very valid question. I just want to reiterate emphatically that there's always going to be hope, so please don't just give up on that. So to my question now, looking at how we are come together now to have this discussion about getting involved and making a case for the young aspirants in Nigeria, how can we reorientate the society that this is actually a better way to get involved in the system than the ELECTORAL protest a lot of Nigerians embarked on, and at the end we suffered a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I pass the year in my order.
20 seconds.
Yes, and then I have this question, not specifically for you, but everyone here that have also spoken about this 2020 elections. And then I watched these US elections, and then within this interval, if I'm not mistaken, there are several litigations that went within this period, within the electoral election period. And then all of them were dispensed as fast as possible. And not even the litigation was able to stop anything. And then when you try to juxtapose what happened recently there with what is always happening in Nigeria, then I'll be like, maybe we are operating a reverse side of democracy as well. And then our constitution and then our laws maybe were borrowed from maybe helps. Now, looking at MBA, and then the man that my guy here also has been a very frontline member of MBA, and then they also advocate for lawyers and everything in the judiciary and all that. Are there lessons MBA needs to learn from what's happened in this past US election? And then how do we also reflect that in this our country, especially with respect to lawyers' attitude? Because if MBA should reflect the attitude of lawyers, some lawyers will tell you then that they will not answer this case, okay, that this case will not go on, will not, this is not good position of the law, that will not do it. But here in Nigeria, any kind of thing, a lawyer will just go, even though the person knows that it is just a mess, the person will still go on to finding a way to demonstrate the electoral protest. So what will be the MBA's attitude with respect to helping the country achieve its electoral values? And then again, how do we also create that kind of environment as far as the MBA is concerned, as far as Nigeria is also concerned, to have electoral matters that goes on with that electoral block dispense with as fast as possible. So what do you think can be done, especially with respect to this new electoral act that they are talking about currently? Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question is, with the recent events that happened in Uganda, can we say we learned a lesson from it? And also, is it not better they implement the age someone needs to step down from political office? Secondly, I served in Bauchi and there was an event that happened there. I was among the coppers that conducted the election. I saw where children were voting. I know I was not supposed to talk and I spoke. They warned me. You see someone that is 2 years, the parents just carry the hand and print. Is there, and police are there, sorry if I'm mentioning their name, but we need to restructure. These security guys are there. I was trusting that they did nothing. Is it not better we actually educate them? Will I say educate or fuck? We need to me, we need to educate them because seriously, children were voting and you cannot question them. My first question is they should implement an age limit for people to step down from political offices. Secondly, how do we enlighten these police and all these security people that children are not supposed to vote, even when they are there? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, it's quite bizarre that those of us here are not the persons are here that make elections. Those are the elections. Those are the elections are not actually seated here. That's the set of purpose. And my intention of this forum in this kind of discussion, to this talk, it shouldn't be like a talk shop. We should tell this message. How do we tell this message to the persons that they naturally use? Because these persons, the dignity of human person will be taken away from them. So nothing makes sense for them anymore. You get the point? So it shouldn't be a talk shop when people just talk and talk and we just make ourselves happy. We need to tell the message back. Because I have seen some disastrous state of mind of people and the way they think. So if you think you wear suit every day and your own is better because of an enemy with some kind of money, they see you as a threat. So I pray that God will help us, like a Christian.
Amen.
It's quite a huge issue.
Amen. Because I literally.
I'm a lawyer and a politics enthusiast. So I've been here for over an hour. And we're talking about making a case for young aspirants, but I've not heard anyone in particular say anything about female aspirants. Because how do we, these young persons, about 50% of these young persons are women. And if we're seated in this room talking about the disadvantage that young persons face, women that are young persons face times 2 of those disadvantages. So I want to say that if we're in a space like this talking about making a case for young political aspirants, I feel like a special case should be made for women who are young political aspirants, and they exist. It may not seem like so, but they exist. In Abuja, women have contested. Even the last general elections, women have contested for councillorship, House of Reps, and many other things. So it's not as if women are not coming up to take their space. But then if you hear about the disadvantages they face in the electoral front, you would know that it's a special case. So I'm here to add that in every room that we want to talk about making a case for young political aspirants, we should make a louder case for female aspirants because the disadvantage is a lot.
Thank you very much.
I believe you would have kind of pushed away the initial question, the first question, one of the questions I asked earlier about the legitimacy of power. We've all talked about rigging and elections not being favorable to particular individuals, but I think the central point is being missed. The essence of an election is that people are selecting a candidate or basically putting their votes for a candidate of their choice. And it's now a question of, for me personally, I always ask people, is the problem really and truly the process or the fact that someone we don't like has been elected into office? In 2015, I know for a fact I was vehemently against Muhammad Buhari, but he was elected by a vast majority of people. And that for me is the legitimacy of power. God is not giving you power. It's people that are coming out to vote that are giving you power. And to my mind, that is legitimate. So it's a question of the question is it the individual that for us is a problem, and thus we now question the legitimacy, as in the case in the US, where you had Trump, 73 million people voting Trump, and then questioning the election itself? Or are we having a problem with just the individuals that have been elected, and so we say, well, because of the individual, we think there's a problem with the process, young people are voting in Kano, and we don't think it's right? I mean, that for me is the real question. Is it an issue of the person, or just the way in which the person has used to get into power? Thank you.
Thank you.
Because America is a racist society, they knew they needed a white man. And the most legitimate white male they could find was Biden, because of his age and having been in power. But America, remember, had Obama was a younger guy. So if you're concerned about the age, as this gentleman just said, you have to build up your career in politics. You cannot just come out of the blue and run office. You have to have a track record. Right? So Trump did not have a track record, but you see the damage he did to American politics because he didn't understand how things work. So we can learn from that in that aspect of picking the right candidate that could defeat somebody you do not like. The other thing that we can learn from them is the issue of legitimacy of power. Yes, Trump has some crazy supporters that believe that the election was stolen, but they have no legitimate proof. So no matter how you look at it, Joe Biden is the legitimate candidate. So we can study and see what we can do in Nigeria. So about putting the age gap, America doesn't have an age gap that says you cannot run for office if you're 78, because Biden is going to be the oldest president elected in American history. But if he cannot perform his duties, if you're a student of comparative constitutional law, you will know that Nigerian 1979 constitution was modeled after the US constitution, blah, blah, blah. So there's a 25th amendment that would allow you to remove him if he cannot perform. Even if he's 60 years old or 100, if the person cannot perform his duty, you can remove the person. So putting an age gap on running for office might be a problem legally, because everybody has a right to contest for office, and we have a right to choose who we vote for in office, no matter their age. But the young people, because you're refusing to run for office, maybe because of the money, and you're trying to support older people, you are not going to have your agenda in the place. All right?
Thank you very much, sir.
Win the election either on the field, either by voting or to the courts. Yes, that is true, right? And you don't need God to win the election for you. You need to work. But as a Christian, you need to put God first, right? As a Muslim, true, any religion you decide to go with. But not only that, you can win either by the court or by the polls. Now, these are our own people. Muslims don't have certificates. They came in by fraud, and the youth can lead. When I was contesting my experience, they would just look at me and say, vote for you, look at Iyabelo. So Iyabelo was not the yardstick of, but do you know, since 2016, I started writing my manifesto because I have the ambition to contest for governor. And that's why 2011, I was a PA to Peter Obama when he was contesting as a senator in Anambra State. So I learned a lot. There are some processes I have passed through. So 2016, I started writing my manifesto. And 2020 became very easy for me. Very easy for me. I contested my primaries and I won before going to an election. So I want to tell you that there's still hope for the youth. It depends on what you have in mind. Now, the politicians we have made our youth vulnerable and gullible. That's why you can take stipend, or they can just look at you and give you 5 million or 1 million, and you think they have settled you. But there's a lot more, because there's a lot of poverty. You will not understand. You will not understand unless you have been there. That's why anybody that is happy right now will not know what it takes to be sad, because you have not decided, you are not in that mood. So there is poverty in this state. And that's why things are not going well. That's why somebody, look at the ELECTORAL. The very good day I decided to join the ELECTORAL protest in Abuja, I almost lost my life. And this was it. Some people were paid money, we were just booking our own, and they came with machete and knife with police escorts. They were with armed, no escort. And during my election too, I was scared. But thank God for good individuals who saw my purpose, who saw what I want, who saw my manifesto. Just imagine manifesto is already 4 years back to that particular point in time. So okay, I'm just trying to get there is still hope. There is still hope for the youth. We can actually do better. Just take away fear. Start doing what you know you can do. Start talking because you have the right to what? Talk. Start talking and start doing what you want to do. Start going to your constituencies. Start from there. Start meeting people, and God will see you through. Thank you.
Society is allowed to participate, and that the political environment is such that whether you're a woman, it could be a Nancy Pelosi that could be elected Speaker of the US House of Congress at 80, and it could be a 21-year-old person, should be able to be a Biden that was one of the youngest persons elected in the US Senate at 30, or there's one other young person who was elected at 20 plus and who would have to wait till 21 to be sworn in. It doesn't matter. Is it to suggest that the hope lies in the youth per se? Is to suggest that the others have nothing for that to add? And then to suggest that there should be an age limit to participation would be to suggest that age robs you of further contribution. The Malaysians re-elected Mahathir Mohamad at almost 90. In 2018, he was in office in March of last year. And again, if part of the political process is to make any sense, the people should be allowed to choose a fool, an idiot, a sage, or any kind of person they find some interest, or a Trump to lead them. It becomes a choice, and that talks about the legitimacy of the process. It doesn't matter, you may not like the outcome, but let the outcome be such that it reflects the will of the people. So yes, the youth are the hosts of the vote to the extent that they should be allowed to participate, to the extent that the older person should not so dominate the scene as to make the youth get frustrated and unable to participate because the system is so militarized and skewed in such a way as to exclude them. That I think is the problem of the Nigerian youth, and that I think is their complaint. And that's why the ELECTORAL protest, they used to charge from behind to show that they have their own thinking in a situation where money did not count, the issue of presenting issues for discussion.
Thank you very much, sir. While you're still with the mic,
I don't know.
A round of applause.
I need to tell you why I say I don't know. I earlier also said that just like the amendment to the Electoral Act, it's not a silver bullet, it's not a cure-all. When the society is made in such a way that the 21-year-old can go for primaries, and it's not about who shares money to the highest number of delegates. The members, parties have a legitimate register of voters, of members who vote, who could be like, what's the name of the leader of the Labour Party in the UK or something, who the incumbent did not want to succeed in, but the generality of the members wanted and they voted him in as the leader of the party. It's such that it's an ideology-driven thing, it's an interest-driven thing. So people come and vote in the Senate, not why you are an aspirant in the primary before you get there, it's not announced. And that is totally all over. And no primary takes place, and somebody is swearing on that oath that someone was the highest number of votes, and signs up on it about who shares the highest amount of money. And that is why my good friend here, Mr. Fido, could only have got ticket in not one of the big political parties. Because I'm not sure he has the money to buy a party ticket. He can't buy it. It is bought. Delegates are giving money, sometimes in dollars, to vote. And they are kept in a hotel and bought into the avenue for film trick. The winner is already predetermined. If you give money to the party secretariat, they give you this to draw up the names of the voters. So when I pretend, I don't want to pretend I have an answer. Because Nigerian system is so complicated that devious politicians make sure that whatever rules you make, they subvert. So it's an attitude change, not our laws, I repeat.
A round of applause, please.
Surrounding the Electoral Act. And I will I will personally plead that most of you read it. I think I sent a soft copy to the convener of this roundtable. There are some sections that would take care of some of the abnormality in our electoral process, especially what she talked about, the lady who was a copper in Bauchi. There's a new amendment, totally, section 43 on section 43, section 49, and section 63. What that's from the accreditation process, from the policing of the ballot equipment. You are not allowed, party agents are not allowed to record. You can record as an evidence. Then in the accreditation process as well, you can record.
So I want to ask a question. What happens while you're recording? Somebody takes your phone, smashes in front of you, slaps you and sends you out. They arrest you.
No. It's still, at least it will still go a long way. It might not cure all problems. It might not cure all problems. It might not cure all problems. No, at least it will.
You're asking about maybe live recording.
Yes, yeah, you can record as an evidence.
Wow. No, why does the law need to give you the power when you should have it on the other?
No, right now what we are trying to do, what the Electoral Act is trying to do, is trying to reduce. It's trying to reduce incidents of electoral malpractices, because you cannot legislate against bad behavior. The man that is coming to scatter a line, you can't make laws for him. You can't say, oh, on election day. No, right now, yes, but right now we have to at least take a step in ensuring that at least the electoral process is a bit credible, because what politicians do, they buy most of these ballot papers prior to the election, and if
who sells to them?
It's still Nigerians.
No,
Nigerians. So at the end of the day, it's still all about we Nigerians. Do we have the will as Nigerians to ensure our elections are free?
Yes, because the last question I'm going to make reference to, is when someone said, how then do we generate the willpower of the people? Judging that money is being spread everywhere. I mean, there was a time on Instagram, some girls just woke up and they're like, I don't sell my vote 5,000 on those state elections. I don't sell them. Now, you can get them. And then they were proud to say that they sold their vote. So how then do you literally generate the willpower of the youth? I just hope all the questions here have been answered. So that's the last one.
My name is Mazi Afam Grant, the founder of Promise to Read. Born by a teacher mother or an educationist father, teaching the thing I've always been very, very passionate about. So I've always wanted to add my own little quota to the educational space. So it was something I was really thinking about, and let me start again.
During the education is what? There are some people that do not collect money for vote for you. There are people that voted for me. I did not give them one naira. Though I came active, when I say I came tall, you will not understand. You will not understand, because listen, let me tell you, I was the only person that came out. Other parties have been existing though in the state. You have Labour Party, you have social, whatever other party that have been there, SDP. But I came out, but because of the way we planned it, and we have people who are ready to vote that money, and they voted, so it's possible. The change can start from you. Okay, listen.
Mr. Ibo, Your Excellency, sir.
My name is Mazi Grant, founder of Promise to Read. I've been born by an educationist mother and a very bookish father. Education has always been something I've always been very, very passionate about. I've always wanted to contribute my own little part to the educational space, but I was looking for the niche that I could contribute. And on coming to the Policy Roundtable, the second edition, the second session, there was one of the speakers talked about his little contribution to the educational space. So I felt like I as well contribute my own little part to the educational space. So I went back home, did my homework, and promised to it was birthed. So basically this is what we do. We go to rural communities as young people to teach and mentor children for free, and also do our best to source for educational materials to aid educational pursuits. Young people go to rural communities and teach, or kids in the hinterland or in some parts of the in Nigeria. So we teach these children, we teach and mentor them, and also do our best as an organization to raise, to help source for educational materials to aid educational pursuit. So for me, my experience with the Promise Roundtable, I will confidently say I've birthed Promise to Read.